Lots of work still to be done, but plenty of ambition on show also. And now we have the chance to examine all of this a bit more closely, and let's head into our panel discussion for today. So joining Harshal for the discussion, we have three more experts representing different supply chain experts. So please, representing different supply chain segments, sorry. So please welcome, first of all, Kartikeya Sharma, founder and CEO of Sunshore. Sunit Kapoor, CEO at Epsilon Advanced Materials. And finally, Rashi Gupta, Managing Director at Vision Mechatronics. Please welcome Rashi. Well, thanks all of you for joining our session this afternoon. Now, India is at the beginning of its journey in terms of building battery manufacturing capacity. And I'd like to kick off by asking each of you, where do you see the next challenge for energy storage in India? And let's make our way down the line and start with you, Kartikeya.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Harshal, for setting the stage, and thank you, PV Magazine, for organizing this great discussion. I think battery manufacturing in India is an opportunity for our country to act a little differently in this new asset class, which is going to, by all means, take over the renewable energy ecosystem in India for the remainder of this decade. The kind of onslaught of asset deployment that we saw in the last decade between 2015 and 2020 with solar primarily, battery storage is going to mimic that, and as an asset class is going to be a lot more complex than simply setting up solar panels and generating power. So as a country, we see it very clearly. I've been here in this expo since the morning, and I think we have already picked up this manufacturing supply chain from one end, which is the manufacturing of the containers, right, or getting modules, solar LFP cells and putting them into modules and then containerizing them. So that part of the supply chain is, I think we are going to ace that and be at a level of about 25 to 30 gigawatt hours by the end of the next financial year. So it's a matter of scaling that and then going deeper and vertically integrating and eventually getting to cell manufacturing, which I think by 2030 we should have, I think, at least 25% of our annual installations, and I think that's what we need to plan and execute as a country.
Okay, and next up, Sunit, the next challenge for energy storage in India.
Thank you, Mark. I think Harshal set the stage very well, talking about the ecosystem which needs to get developed in India. And I think just adding on to what Kartikeya just mentioned, to me, I think it's a great opportunity and a bit wake-up call also when you talk about the ban coming from China, the whole upstream material. So Indian government started with on the advanced chemistry cell. I would not go with the battery storage, but I think in the advanced chemistry cell to put a PLI scheme and sort of bring some incentives to get that rolling. But I think the policy needs to be strengthened further to get in the upstream manufacturing and then get the whole ecosystem somewhat developed. I also guess the center and state, from a policy point of view, still are in a catch-up mode, and there's a lot to learn from West. Especially US. We as Epsilon Advanced Material, we are setting up a plant in the US, and I think under the Biden government, the Inflation Reduction Act, and now even in the One Big Beautiful Bill, there is a lot of learning which can be taken and get implemented in India from a policy standpoint. So I'll talk later maybe about the upstream material, how that is developing in India. I'll stop here.
And Harshal, next up.
Sure, thank you. Like Mr. Sunit mentioned, that more upstream policies, a separate maybe PLI scheme for upstream components, manufacturing coming to India right now. And the second one, which I guess the government recently announced in the budget, that the basic custom duties were exempted on raw materials battery component raw materials, and it was increased to the battery packs, which was a greater move for that. So similar kind of policies, more focused towards upstream components rather than downstream.
And finally, Rashi, welcome once more. And where do you see the next challenge for energy storage in India?
You want a very honest answer?
Of course, yes.
Everyone? I think skills would be the biggest challenge India is going to face in energy storage. Because no matter what you do, you can get components, you can get cells, you could get machinery, you could get tech. But the most important factor which is going to miss is the human resource, the skilled human resource, to understand something which is not made by you, number one. Number two, the criticalities of a high voltage system in the country, which is a kind of assembly that is currently happening and not manufactured right from scratch. So this is another challenge. And number three that you would face, the India's storage market would today face, would be the challenge on cybersecurity. So these are the three major challenges that India would face now, as in now and a few years from now. And if we really, really want to be a leader just like we are now in the renewable energy space, in the solar space, we can obviously be in even in the battery space. But if we need to be in that position, maybe like a global leader or a hub for the world, then we need to take care of these three major elements which will cause the crisis coming forward.
Well, I think the skills and indeed cybersecurity, yes, certainly are huge topics that we'll try to address in this in this fairly short session. The thing I'd like to go to first, though, is the upstream sector, and of course, Sunit, you are working in this sector already, producing battery materials at Epsilon. Do you already have customers in India for these, and how do you see that kind of domestic market developing?
Yep. No, thanks, Mark. Now, we in India and globally, we work with the major cell manufacturers. Obviously, we work outside China. So China is, as we just saw in the graph also. Okay. I thought I was speaking loud. Okay. So like I said, we work with the leading cell manufacturers ex-China. We do not work with the Chinese cell manufacturers, but we work with the leading cell manufacturers which are outside China. And some of them are collaborating or setting up facilities in India. We are also working with the customers in India, but I have to admit, I mean, again, as I think Dr. Rashi asked, you need an honest answer. So honest answer is still that I think Indian ecosystem is still getting developed. The skill to make a cell is still getting developed, and the customers are somewhat not ready to go into the upstream material to have experimentation to change the material and work with a different material, because getting the cell right is still a question mark with the new players in India. But again, from our point of view, we are qualified with major cell manufacturers outside China, which are also obviously setting up facilities in India and also globally.
And well, Rashi, you work a little bit more downstream on battery packs and systems. How do you see the current situation in terms of sourcing those components domestically within India?
Well, I have been working in this segment since 2015, when nobody was even talking about lithium. So yes, there are certain challenges that we see, and we have overcome them over a period of time. But if I look at it, we need more scale in terms of manufacturing. We need more scales in terms of indigenization of these products and its ancillaries, okay? It's more focus today is just on the cells. However, if you look at the other ancillary components which go into a battery pack manufacturing, those can really be very well manufactured at a fantastic quality, world-class quality in India within the time frame that is required. But it is still sometimes cheaper to get it from the neighboring country rather than to manufacture in India. So somewhere we need an assessment of what is the quality versus the price ratio that we actually need even downstream into the pack manufacturing in India to actually be Atmanirbhar Bharat, or to actually be a self-reliant country. Because if we don't focus on these points, we will miss out on the economies of scale, which is something that India can really very well achieve. I mean, look at the tenders that have just come out. Look at the scale that we are looking at. But at the same time, the other aspect to look after is that what is the rate of failure we can anticipate. I mean, there was just recently a study by Azure, I think 2-3 days back, which was published on the failures of BESS. I mean, 1 in 15 if it fails, where are we on the quality? And are we really looking at something which we are bringing to India and looking at self-reliance? So yes, there have been a lot of challenges. We've been working indigenously on it. At my company, Vision Mechatronics, we have designed complete systems right from scratch in terms of battery management systems, in terms of PCS, BMS, EMS, all of that integration together. We've been doing it on the megawatt scale for a long time now, and it really makes a significant impact when you have homegrown technologies into the upstream and downstream of the entire value chain when you look at it.
And of course, sorry, please go ahead, Sunil.
Yeah, I would just want to add to that. I would completely agree. I think the scale which is needed, I mean, you talk about the demand in India, it's going to grow and trajectory is positive. There will be a huge demand which is there. I think it becomes a bit unfair to compare maybe before I come to the unfair, the upstream manufacturing, I think there are several players in India which are now setting up facilities, whether it's anode, cathode, including us, and electrolyte separators. So there are several players which are there, but again, as Dr. Rashi mentioned, I think when you start talking about the price from the neighboring country, to me, I think it becomes an unfair comparison because the neighboring country gets a lot of subsidies, a lot of policy support, a lot of support from the government, and to me, that's what I started with in the beginning, that's something which is missing in India. And to get to that level in India, I think the state and the central government has to work together to set up this ecosystem. The scale would not come. I mean, if we talk about our facility, we are starting with a 30,000 ton and China starts with 100,000 tons. So obviously there is economies of scale there.
I agree completely with him, and I would like to add one point here. And this kind of, it's not just the policy which contributes, it's also the mindset of the user, the consumer, the industry, and then the government all together. When that mindset comes into the correct position, it is only then you will have the economies of scale like our neighbors have. Like he said, you know, we start with 30,000 tons, they start with 1 lakh tons. So that mindset has to come to India.
And are there particular components, in the battery system, aside from the cell, of course, where you see an especially strong opportunity to ramp up that manufacturing here in India?
You got to repeat that. I lost you in between.
Sorry.
So I'm so sorry.
Are there particular system components aside from the battery cell, where you see an opportunity to quickly?
There are many. You have cabinets, you have plastics, you have metal bus bars, you have welding, you have so many things. I mean, how many welding companies are there in India? And if you look at lasers, okay, how many OEMs are there who are doing all these things? So the opportunities are endless. And with the terawatt scale of energy storage that India really needs, every sector, every ancillary sector also has a lot of opportunities to grow, to flourish, and to become a billionaire. Absolutely true. You have a lot of opportunities.
The one that can make you a billionaire, let's connect on that separately.
I am done, deal.
But aside from that, I think specifically on the energy management systems, right, which is the acting brain of a power producing system, right? Once you manufacture a BESS, eventually it has to find a home behind a power plant. And the kind of response that the grid in India expects from these battery systems requires these battery systems to act intelligently, to act in line with, if you are part of an FDRE tender, then you have to follow a certain kind of load. If you're part of, let's say, a tertiary reserve kind of application, then you have to respond to certain signals. So the energy management system, I think, is one component of the battery system, which is right up India's alley, right? Because it's basically hardware and software integration, wherein we don't have the skill gap issue, right? We've developed far more complex systems in the country. And very recently, even on the policy side, the Indian government has mandated that the energy management systems, which will be part of battery storage systems in India, will have to be manufactured in India. So I think that is one very clear pathway to upscaling the battery manufacturing ecosystem in India.
Okay, and well, beyond that, the kind of management systems, do you see already appetite for made in India batteries? Kartikeya, first of all, I think you are working with with the battery systems in total.
Yeah, so we are a power producer, and we see a lot of demand for battery applications at a grid scale, both across our utilities business and our C&I business. In fact, this year we will be deploying about 1 gigawatt hour of battery storage. Half of it is going to be standalone, operating just in conjunction with the grid. Other half will be built alongside solar and wind power plants. When it comes to preferences for indigenous manufacturing versus imported systems, the end consumer does not really care. The end consumer cares about when they get the power and at what price they get the power. And right now, as an investor, we want to obviously back technologies which have, or back companies who have a track record of performance either in India or outside. Mostly in India, there is hardly any operating track record of a gigawatt hour scale battery storage. So most of it is outside India. Some of the top tier manufacturers in China, such as CATL or Goshen or Lishan or Hythium, REPT, these are manufacturers that we are talking to. The decision that we are trying to make right now is whether we get the entire system, lock, stock and barrel imported, or do we import part of the system and, like Dr. Rashi was saying, maybe add some value towards at least half of that BOS within India, maybe the containers, maybe the PCS and so on, because those are things that have performance track record in India. But as far as the core DC side battery system is concerned, I don't think there is any alternative right now to either a Chinese or a Korean supplier, and not just in India, across the globe.
I would want to disagree, but given the time's availability, I can take this question. I mean, I can disagree a little later on that, but I disagree on that.
Okay, but please feel free to to elaborate if you want to.
So, see, even if the cell manufacturing lies with the Chinese, with the Koreans, or any other global players for that matter, India, what should they do is they should look at integrating their own electronics when it comes to the battery management systems, to EMS, to PCS. But even there is quite a bit of challenge in terms of PCS at the moment, because when you look at megawatt scale PCS is coming, there is, I mean, the Indian manufacturers are not able to compete on the pricing there. But when you look at the DC container, I think it is important for India to have their own indigenous BMS, and on the utility level, on the full containerized level, to have an EMS. So at least one step we have gone ahead of having an indigenous EMS, but there has to be a very important step on taking a indigenous BMS also in the country, because like what I said in the first statement of the cybersecurity threat, the whole power sector can come to a standstill in just 1 second. If we do not take care and protect the systems that we are actually deploying at the moment. So this has to be really, really looked into and thought of with utmost care. And if you say that only EMS is going to play a very important role in the security and safety of the system, then I would say that yes, it does play a significant role, but at the same time, the BMS as well as the PCS are also equally important, because if they are not in sync, your system collapses. So something that what I meant was that yes, it's important, and there are companies in India who are deploying very safe 100% indigenous made in India kind of projects, which really make a significant difference.
Well, we see quite a mix of situations, I think, and some policies in place already, certainly more needed. Harshal, let's put this question to you first of all. How long before we might see meaningful policy really take effect that would start to bring capacity into India to make batteries?
Looks like I'm at the crossroads between Dr. Rashi and Karthikeya. But I can, from an outside observation, if we just look at, let's say, PLI scheme, so it was like to be completed by December 2024, and they couldn't. The only reason which Dr. Rashi mentioned, the large-scale production is missing here, and there has been a lot of geopolitical issues in the past couple of years as well, which have led to this delay. So, I mean, there are a lot of maybe policy push from the government side, but maybe more restrictions should be put on. For example, let's say in solar, I looked at ALMM, for example, or they are trying to do it an upstream integration to ALMM for cells. Something similar kind of thing. They're starting out with ALBM, but we still don't know what's the timeline for it. So maybe that could be the one way forward to go about it.
Sure. And well, if we look to solar manufacturing for just a moment, India has achieved huge success there, primarily through effective policies. Karthikeya, I think at Sunshore you're also purchasing PV modules, right? I mean, did these policies change your business, and how would you expect that to apply to batteries?
So massively. We deploy about 1 gigawatt of solar every year, and we've been in business for the last 11 years now. The impact of in the last 3 years, the kind of non-tariff barriers which came through the ALMM application that have had on the Indian manufacturing ecosystem for solar was unimaginable. I mean, in 2019, we were looking at massive volatility in solar PV pricing because we were completely dependent on China, and there were a lot of policy changes within China, which would lead to very unpredictable pricing for Indian assets. And as Harshal had pointed out, India is a very tender-driven market, right? So you typically, the day you close a price to the day you realize revenue, there is typically a 24-month gap. And in that kind of a scenario, if you're dependent on a country like China to supply your panels, you're looking at a massive inflation risk. Sometimes coming not because of the commodity cycle, but because of internal policies in China. Batteries also, because I believe that at least for the next 12 to 24 months, I think we are going to be completely dependent on China for procuring the core material, lithium-ion cells. There we will face similar conundrums, and that's why we have to eventually move to internal manufacturing. But in order to do that, I think the playbook that the government has used for improving the solar manufacturing, which was basically first you put tariff barriers, which is you put customs duty, you put anti-dumping duty, you do the right kind of investigations, you incentivize certain cases where you're doing domestic purchase. Then you follow that up with a non-tariff barrier. You say that but that only comes after you have certain amount of proof of concept within the country. So we were confident to do a non-tariff barrier thing in solar once we already had about 25 to 30 gigawatts of manufacturing on the ground. And today we have 100 gigawatts of manufacturing in solar. That's just in 3 years. It took us 15 years to get to 30 gigawatt and then 3 years to get from 30 to 100, and that happened on the back of ALMM. We are looking at a similar success story now with cell manufacturing. Now that we have a non-tariff barrier on ALMM2 on cells, the conversations I have had tell me that in the next 2 years we will be at 100 gigawatt of cell manufacturing. So that's even faster, right? For doing ALBM, I think the government is going to wait for at least the next 18 to 24 months. Once we have, in my head, at least 15 to 20 gigawatt hours of operating capacity on the ground of batteries, and about at least 10 gigawatt hour of manufacturing capacity, that is when I think it's a good time to experiment with ALBM, experiment with increasing duties. But I have complete faith in that playbook that is going to help ramp up the capacity of manufacturing.
And okay, another question I'd like to ask each of you individually. When we look at these rapidly developing policies, what do you see as the most important to your battery business? And let's start with Rashi this time and make our way up the line.
That's a very tricky question. What do I see as growth in business? If we have, we actually have good policies. But what I feel, if we could have these policies implemented better, faster, I think we in India can see an exponential growth. I mean, what he said just now, to have 100 gigawatt hour in 24 months, I think if these policies are implemented in time, we can have this growth in less than 13 to 14 months. In less than that. But the only thing is we need to have these implementations in time. Also, when we're talking of VGFs and we're talking of subsidies and we're talking of any incentivization that's happening from the government, the disbursement of these funds should be in time, which is usually very, very delayed in our country, which derails the entire economics. I mean, my Excel sheet doesn't match the actuals in the country, which really disrupts the whole scenario. So, and one more thing, that if it's a wish list, it's a big wish list, but if that happens, as in when you rank on ease of doing business in terms of energy storage, in terms of batteries, I think little more clarity in terms of policies if we have, and if we can implement better policies faster, I think we'll see much, much more growth and a ground level penetration. Right now, if I look at energy storage, all the noise is around the utility scale, large tenders or large deployments. But what India truly needs is a hybrid mix, which is centralized yet decentralized and controlled. So once you look at it in a perspective of having multiple deployments of storage to be used centrally or to be controlled, and having a mixture of large-scale battery deployments at a very strategic points. I mean, whether it's in Discom, it's in Transcos, or if it's at Gencos. I mean, Gencos could be anybody. I mean, even the RE developers could be in the Genco side. But the point is, if you strategically place your BESS, the large scale and the small scale, the combination could actually bring a lot of energy independence to the country. So if I see a proper implementation within the timeline, I think all the businesses in energy storage will grow.
Okay, Harshal, any particular policy that stands out for you?
Not policy per se, but yeah, I'd like to add on to the point which Dr. Rashi mentioned at first, like R&D, more and more investments into the R&D sector should be the one. But we should also take into account if we are, let's say, there's no alternative that we are only procuring cells from China, or in the solar sector also, we were overly dependent on China. So if we have to move away from them, what's the other way forward? Maybe some strategic alignment with some partnership with other countries. So I was reading this, like Indonesia is having huge nickel reserves. So if anyone who doesn't want to be associated with China, they can go to Indonesia for that matter. And so Indonesia actually put export ban to there. So they wanted to have this as, like this is my field, I would say. So they reached out to World Trade Organization as well. But the only thing is, like, it's all about strategic partnerships until unless we build our own indigenous capacity at home. That's all.
Okay, and Sunit, any wish on the policy side?
Yeah, no, I think it's covered very well, but Karthikeya summed up very well in the previous question. I think to me, the wake-up call is already there from China with the export ban, which they just announced a few weeks back. And that's a wake-up call for, not for India, but for other countries as well. To me, it's a national security issue. I mean, it's not about China. I always think about that, you start bashing one country, and that's not the right thing, because I think they've done very well. They've worked over 2 decades on being proactive, so I don't think you can blame them. I think the other countries haven't done as much to be proactive. So, like I think Karthikeya mentioned, I mean, there has to be a systematic approach to say, okay, we put some entry barriers, and then we develop the whole ecosystem, and not just the upstream manufacturing, but also the recycling, because there will be several batteries as the cell manufacturing continues to grow. We will also see, and the lithium-ion batteries continues to grow, so we'll see a lot of batteries which would need recycling in the system. The question becomes, and to me, I think the Indian industry, and there are a lot of credible players which have done really well in getting qualification done and not being dependent on any technology either outside, either from Korea, Japan, or from China. We are a good example. We filed our own patents, and we are not taking any technology partnership from anybody. We're running a commercial scale plant today in Bellary of 2,000 tons, which is small, but it's operational, and I think it's the largest capacity outside China today for a graphite anode. We are running a plant in Germany for cathode active material, for lithium, for LFP, LMFP chemistry. So to me, I don't think the Indian industry needs the incentives for a longer duration, but for you to get to a scale where it's a chicken and egg story. If you are not getting that support as the neighboring country is getting, you won't let the industry get out of. And then as you get that scale, I don't think the Indian industry would need that subsidies for a long time. So.
Sure. And Karthikeya, finally, and anything to add on the policy side?
Absolutely. I actually have just a slightly contrarian view over here. I think, and I keep trying to think of foundational industries, right, which have taken foot in India and have become, let's say, examples of global excellence. Take automotive, for example. I think that is one industry which is visible, which everyone can relate to. How did we come up and build an automotive industry in India? Because I think power, especially battery storage component of power, is going to have a significant impact on the Indian economy and might have the same kind of importance as the automotive industry. I think one thing that, and we are a CNI player, so we sell a lot of power to these automotive industries, so I've seen that ecosystem quite closely. One thing that stands out is the amount of technology partnerships that these companies did. For example, Maruti, which is our flag bearer for India's innovation in automotive, actually had a technology partnership with Suzuki. And they came in, and following them came a lot of technology partnerships on the ancillary side, right? You look at a company like Uno Minda, for example, they have like 30 JVs with Japanese and German and all kinds of companies. I think for battery manufacturing, one way to kind of leapfrog to a point where instead of less value addition we get very quickly to the actual cell manufacturing thing, which is very complex as compared to anything that we do in manufacturing in India, would be to have policies which enable in a certain controlled manner technology partnerships with overseas companies. If that could be incentivized in certain way, I think we would really solve for a very key part of the manufacturing sector in batteries.
Just maybe one comment. No, I completely agree with you because my comments were more focused on the upstream manufacturing, and I think Harshal just presented. I mean, when you talk about the battery materials which are getting into a lithium-ion battery, most of 95–97% of the processing happens in one country, and there is an export ban on that country. So my comments were more based on upstream manufacturing, that you do not even have the choice to create that partnership or a technology partnership because that is restricted from China today. So I agree.
But I actually wanted to understand about this export ban, right? It was more like for energy densities more than 300 watt-hour per kg. And in India, it's like around 200. So is it going to be affecting the Indian BESS market in any scenario? Or maybe in the short term?
We are not right now importing anything. Not really importing any lithium to that extent. So I don't, first of all, you're right, it does not apply to that grade of lithium. But I think if you look at the numbers, I don't think we are importing any grade of lithium as such, or whatever we are importing, we are maybe importing, maybe it does impact the electric vehicle sector, which is where you need the more energy dense lithium derivatives. But as far as the stationary storage is concerned, I think there is very limited manufacturing anyways, but maybe Dr. Rashi can be the better.
If I can add to, I think on the upstream manufacturing, the export ban is very, very explicit, where it is involving the graphite material, it's involving the secondary material which is going into the BEV space, it's involving the processing part of it, and especially the agglomeration or the so-called secondary particle, we call it in the graphite side, and graphitization, which is the key in producing an active anode material. Similarly, on the LFP side, it's the processing which has been put under the export ban.
Great.
Sorry, Dr. Ash.
No, it's okay. So what I feel is that yes, this import ban will affect India, maybe not immediately, but in the due course of time, maybe in few months from now, you will see the impact. Because like what Karthikeyan said, that this goes to the higher density and higher energy density modules and lithium there. But what will happen is that will really impact the quality that is coming to our country. And you will see more of grade B and used material coming to India. And this is a very blunt and straightforward answer that I'm giving you.
Yeah, I guess similar thing with solar. We were expecting that the solar prices will not be as cheap as they are right now, and it's gonna price hike in the next quarter. But I was hoping to get an answer for storage as well, because there's a lot of solar plus storage projects that are coming up with the prices literally dropping down like crazy. And I think it's the same scenario when it happened in 2019 in solar. The regulations were there, but not as stringent as we are with battery. So this overcapacity thing, oversupply thing from China, it's kind of a major threat right now.
Yeah, and you really need to be very stringent with battery storage because it's number one, it's hazardous. The nature of the battery is in hazardous waste, so that's one. And the second point is that in solar, your fire still can be contained, in one section. If you just are able to disconnect that particular part, you can still contain. But when it comes to battery fires, when it comes to safety regulations, you need much, much more stringent norms when it comes to batteries rather than solar independently, if I look at it. So, yeah, I mean, you'll see more of these things coming in now.
So yeah, of course, this restriction from China does seem like it throws up some challenges. Are there key lessons though and learnings that India can take from China and potentially from other established regions with battery manufacturing? Let's put that question maybe to Sunit first of all.
Your question is that is there a learning from China on the ecosystem development?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. No, I think there's a great learning from China, the way they established the whole ecosystem, starting from upstream to cell to battery packs to solar through the ESS. They've incentivized the whole industry and then the recycling. So they've not focused on just one part of the ecosystem. They've developed the whole ecosystem. So I clearly, like I said, I think it's a 2 decades or 2+ decades of work which they've done. And other countries are in a catch-up mode today, and including India. So there is definitely a learning. And then I think it's been said before, I will be just repeating myself, that it's the initial support which the industry needs, where you have barriers of entry for the customers to actually go for indigenized material, indigenized cells, indigenized batteries. And as you gain scale, you don't need those incentives anymore.
Okay, and anything to add on lessons from established regions?
I think with China, and you're talking specifically about manufacturing though?
Yes, I think we're focusing on
because I think
manufacturing.
in deployment outside of China, US has done a great job. They are today at an annual run rate of about 150 gigawatt hours. Which is quite massive, which is maybe, just after China, they are the largest annual deployment. But on manufacturing in China, I think what Sunit said, obviously you can't deny it, right? For 2 decades, they saw this coming. This was one of the focus technology sectors, one of the top 5 focus technology sectors for the government for the last 2 decades, alongside renewable energy development. But I think one part of the manufacturing ecosystem there, it's a cultural thing, I think, is a significant amount is invested in the research and development part. So out of, let's say, a battery company like a CATL might have about 20,000 employees. Out of those 20,000 employees, I think there will be about 3,000 PhDs who would be part of that company. And there will be so these are researchers with a research kind of mindset, with an innovation kind of mindset, sitting in key positions. And that really shows, because it's one thing to go out and create a minimum viable product, right? But then to continuously innovate and bring the price down and commercialize it, improve the reach, get feedback, create products which are relevant in geographies across the globe, right, is something which is truly driven by, I believe, this research-driven culture. And they clearly invest in that, and there is an entire ecosystem that feeds not just the battery or the renewable energy system, but manufacturing at large in China. So that's certainly something we should learn.
Now, when we look at battery technology, sorry, Harshal, did you want to add something?
So since CATL was mentioned, so we were like speaking to them earlier, and their production plans for the next 3 years, it's like 1.4 terawatt hours, and like leaps and bounds ahead of our own entire manufacturing capabilities. So that's how China is, like they have started way ahead from 2010, 2015. And yeah, there's a lot of things to learn from different companies. So they're using artificial intelligence, machine learning to increase their efficiencies at the factory floor or the, so yeah, CATL, BYD, 2 companies so that we should definitely look out for.
And when we look at kind of the focus of battery technology, in recent years, most manufacturers, I would say, have focused on LFP cell technology. Probably Harshal, do you see other battery chemistries in the frame, or?
So when we were doing this analysis on the basis of cost, right? So NMC was prevalent in South Korea, but in the past couple of years, we have seen that there's a lot of battery fires happened which have led to a decline or maybe a confidence in that kind of chemistry, and they are also trying to move towards LFP now. So, and also our neighboring country is producing this much at dirt cheap rates, so I think that's going to be the way forward.
Yeah, I think I completely agree. I think LFP from a performance, price point of view, and then especially the LFP or LMFP, which is now, I mean, we were 2-3 years ago, we were talking about Gen 1, Gen 2. Today, China is obviously talking about Gen 5. And outside China, the discussion is around Gen 3, Gen 4 on the compact density. And then obviously you can pack more energy in an LFP battery. So I always think that these will coexist. I mean, depending upon high energy density requirement, you'll have NMC, you'll but also have LFP, and then LFP works very well. That's the shift you see, at least on the graphite side, that synthetic graphite works very well with LFP chemistry, and natural graphite works very well with NMC chemistry. So these chemistries will coexist. But for developing world, I believe that, and especially for energy storage space, LFP plays a very good role from a price performance point of view.
Rashi, is your focus also on LFP, or do you see any other technologies in the frame?
Well, to be very honest, I've been advocating LFP since 2015, even when, you know, everybody digressed to NMC and then came back and went into LTO and then came back. I've always been a very big advocate of LFP. But now what I'm saying is, with LFP, you need hybrid technologies. That is going to be the game changer for the country. Like when we did a hybrid, lead lithium hybrid project, a megawatt scale project, we brought down the capital investment by 40%. So similarly, if we look at other, say for example, flow batteries or with sodium batteries, or you know, even different varieties of lithium to combine together, or even for that matter, battery hydrogen hybrids that we have been doing in Europe, this would be the real giving you a round-the-clock, you know, kind of power that you really need combined with renewables. So definitely LFP is here to stay. It's not going anywhere for the next 2-3 decades at least. But to grow in the sector, to really make a significant impact in the energy storage domain, I think hybridization of technologies is the way forward.
Okay, well, we are getting a bit low on time. There is one more question I would like to squeeze in before we wrap up. Of course, when it comes to manufacturing batteries, they're going to reach their end of life eventually. And do you see recycling infrastructure playing a role as well?
Yes, I see a big role in the second life batteries and recycling of batteries. Why I would first put in a second life battery is because the second life batteries would extend the energy and capital intensive recycling for a few years, and we would not actually burden the Mother Earth for the critical minerals and its mining. So I really feel that the second life batteries play a very significant role, and we at Vision Mechatronics have also taken a very significant step in collaborating with the auto giants to get the EV giants to get their batteries, repurpose them for the stationary storage. We have done a couple of pilots to prove that yes, it really makes sense, and to bring it at a price point which is affordable, acceptable, and the technology is accessible to the multi-sectoral consumer or a user end. This will make a difference. And then post that second life, if we can still have some data from the first and the second life, I mean, of course, my batteries have complete cell level data in terms of the second life as well. And then when you go, there could be a remote little possibility of a third life for a very low-end application, and then finally go into recycling. So this tenure would extend the life by at least 5 to 7 years from the first life, from the end of first life. And this would really make a significant impact in terms of the capital investment, in terms of the energy investment, and in terms of the reliability of having energy storage through its life cycle to actually create a very robust value chain in the country.
Okay, gentlemen, anything to add on recycling? Well then, I think we've covered all of my questions. We have a couple of minutes left though, so I'd like to ask, do we have any questions in the audience? Gentleman just behind Uma was first, I think. Do we have a microphone?
Hello. I'm Akshay Rana. I represent International Battery Company, India Private Limited. It's a joint venture between IBC US and Mahanagar Gas Limited. So, my question to this panel would be, I think all of you agreed that LFP is the chemistry of the future. Now, as you all know, China and Mr. Suneet pointed out that China is already into Gen 3, Gen 4 of LFP chemistry. Plus, in addition to that, they have put export restrictions on the processing of this cell technology, which is primarily to do with LFP and the next generation of LFP. So, if India is also playing on the same playbook at which China is already way ahead, so do you think LFP still should be the chemistry of choice, or should India, venture out into different chemistries, probably a better version of NMC or LMFP or sodium ion or something like that?
So maybe I think I can talk about the LFP, which is, we are into LFP or LMFP cathode active material as well. And we have developed Gen 4 technology already at our place. So we acquired a company in Germany outside Munich, and we have our pilot line there. So we are not, obviously not having any technology partnership with China. So we developed the whole technology on our own. And I believe there are other companies also which are working on getting the new technologies in. So I don't think China is obviously was ahead of the game, but the catch-up isn't like a decade from now.
Can I add? So I really still feel LFP will still remain the base chemistry. You could definitely have variants depending on climate sensitivity, on performance, or other parameters that you would really need to evaluate. But I still feel the base chemistry, because it's very stable, it has a very nice temperature sensitivity, it has a very wide range of operation. So I still feel LFP will remain.
Okay.
I'll just add to this from a investor's perspective. See, all infrastructure is built on debt capital largely, right? 70 to 75% of any project that ultimately comes up is funded by debt. And these bankers, when they fund an asset, they really want to look at technology which has a lot of track record. They want, no amount of reasons are enough reasons to give them the kind of safety that they want, right? When they're backing your project to 75 to 80%. So any technology choice, right, for a nation which is trying to come up with indigenous manufacturing must reflect that aspect. So if lithium ferrophosphate chemistry has found, backers worldwide, and India decides to do something completely different, there is a high risk of failing, and there is a high risk of those technologies never really seeing the kind of investments they deserve, even if they are great to begin with.
Localized in India, especially in view of the current export ban. So I think Mr. Suneet offered.
You solve one problem, you create another one.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I think we can squeeze one final question in. We are pretty much out of time.
Thank you. I'm Saif Jangir from GMK Research and Analytics. We do research in RE and EV sector and publish reports. So my question will be for the all speakers. So we were discussing about the cell manufacturing and the challenges we are facing. But let's say we have got cell manufacturing in India, as we have got PLI support, and there are a few players who are doing the cell manufacturing, or like they are planning to do it. But still we are dependent on the China for the critical minerals. And we have got lithium reserves in JNK. So on a policy front, what would be your suggestions considering that?
I guess you asked about upstream materials. So that's exactly what I said in the beginning, that the policy is missing upstream materials. The ecosystem isn't covered completely from upstream to downstream, including recycling. There has been some small, I would say, policy which came up on the recycling side. There has been discussions about PLI scheme on upstream materials, but nothing has been materialized as yet. I think some of the states have taken a good initiative, which is not, in tandem with what central government is doing, but some states have done, independent of just talking about critical minerals, but just to get the industry set up. Some states have done really well. I would not name the states, but I think that's a good help for the industry to get set up, not just the ecosystem. But Centro has to, I think about having focused policies which would work on the upstream manufacturing.
Okay, well, we are just about out of time now, so let's wrap up, and please thank our panelists once more. Thank you all.
All right, thank you so much, everyone. Once again, let's give all the speakers and our moderator a huge round of applause. This panel was conducted by PV Magazines. I hope you all had a great time. Once again, I'd like to thank all the speakers for their valuable time and for sharing their experience with all of us. Also, thank you to our moderator, Mark. And can I call you up on the stage to facilitate all our speakers? The first one would be Suneet Kapoor, the Director and CEO of Epsilon Advanced Materials, EAM. Let's give him a huge round of applause, everyone. Well, can you be in the middle so you can get your pictures clicked, right? Again, Harshul Kanwar, Research Analyst, Wood Mackenzie. Harshul Kanwar, Research Analyst, Wood Mackenzie. Dr. Rashi Gupta, Managing Director, Vision Mechatronics, PVT Limited. Karthike, Co-founder and Chief Business Officer, CBO, Sunshore Energy. Can I please call upon Uma Gupta to present a memento from the team of Informa Markets to Mr. Mark Hutchins.